Hello and welcome. This is Connections Forum, and we have the episode number 60 today. And the topic for today is the third stroke, what now? With our very special guest, Roland Takaoka. So our show offers single episodes and short series of talks and interviews regarding the most important areas in human lives, such as relationship issues, personal expression, self-development, and as well healing of these areas. The purpose of our show is to give you inspiration and also teach you new skills with which you handle the issues we are connected with our topics. But first, about your host. I am Margherita Crystal Lotus. I'm a life and business mentor who helps stressed and overwhelmed women to reclaim their life and business and see the results very soon. I also have hosting a personal VIP retreat called Enchantment Healing Retreat here in Kingston, Ontario, where I see my private clients. And now, over to Heidi.
Yeah, hello, and I'm Heidi Hornlein, also Adelheid Hörnlein on Google+. And I am, let's say, a transformational coach. This is my last name. Before I was a voice coach and many other things, like an organic farmer and a singer and a wife, a third time a wife. And yeah, I'm having here with my new husband, there's not so new anymore, a retreat and a center for courses, and you are very welcome to come in. It is called Paradiso Integrale because we are in Italy. We are definitely living in paradise because when the sun is outside, you should see my backyard. It's all full of anemones, flowers, all colors. It's just a joy. So I think it's enough. Yeah, you can find me in the powerofrelationship.com, and I'm hosting another show, The Wisdom Factory, which is now only a chat time every Wednesday, and the new series begins in May 6th. It's enough, I guess. Is it? Finally, we come over to Roland Takaoka. I can pronounce your name. I don't have any problems, as some other people have. And he was so kind and get up very early in the morning because it's 7 o'clock in the morning his time. And he is with us already half an hour, and we are already talking about this topic. And the topic is 3 strokes and what now? So, but before we talk about that, I read a little bit about Roland. He says Roland is a small business and been promoting their businesses online and teach best practices and prime solutions for establishing online presences and effective internet marketing. However, his view is non-traditional, an advocate against common advertising. Good, I'm too. Roland promotes the philosophies of engagement, relationship building, and first and foremost, the art of giving. And I got to know Roland in the 28 Days of Love Challenge, and it was a wonderful experience, and I highly appreciate you. And I was also already a guest in your show. He is a Hangout show host, and the show is called Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. Highly recommendable for Saturday morning there or Saturday evening here in Europe. So, hello, Roland.
Greetings. Hi, ladies. Thank you for having me on the show, both Heidi and Margherita. And I've been wanting to share some time and just get to know you guys also because of seeing you around and hearing the things that you relate to and the things you say. I feel already, in alignment and in tune with where you ladies are coming from. So this is very comfortable for me this morning.
Yeah, good. I'm really glad that you come. And since I know you, I had the feeling that there is a feeling between our ideas of life and our perspective. So our title is 3 strokes. So obviously you have had 3 strokes. And, people don't see it, but you don't seem to be able to walk around like everybody else does. Could you tell us a little bit how your life is now, but first what happened and what then all the changes, all the things were. And we will jump in with some questions, okay?
Sure. And I know that I'm really appreciative of people literally around the world who have come in there and to be with us today. I know that Alvin and Bill and Hong and let's see who else. I really don't want to miss anybody. Ray Snaberger and Candy. So Debbie Forand is here. Gosh, thank you very much for showing up. Thanks, Bill. And so, you know, the people coming together to listen to me today, I'd rather that we had a conversation. So if you've got specific questions to enhance what we're talking about, fire away. And we've got comment tracker working, and so I could see what you have. And I probably won't get to everybody, but if you mention something in the comment stream, I will certainly address what you have to comment on, so I'll get back to you. But
so the question today, as you are the guest, you don't have to be the host and be there for everybody else, but today it's all about you, about your life, about your worldview, about your transformation in life, about your learning. So,
well, yeah, that's cool. The way people will get to know about my life is to talk to me. So I can tell you the story of what happened. I had 2 or 3 strokes. The first one made me limp on the left side a bit, so I was kind of funky with my left arm and left leg for a while. It came back. I was back to playing racquetball, back to playing my guitar. No big deal. Then I had my second stroke a few years later, and that put my right side out. And so although my left side was getting better, my right side got gimpier, and all of a sudden it was like very much an issue. I had part of my left hand and very little of my right hand, but then it completely came back again. So I was able to go from limping when I walked and not being able to use my right hand to it all came back. I was back in racquetball, back in writing, back in playing my guitar and so forth. And of course, the third stroke said, nope, we want to make a point here, Roland, and took my right arm and my right leg away tentatively, completely. So it always made me wonder, well, if the division down my body was half and half, you've got some organs on the right-hand side of your body and some organs on the left-hand side of your body, why doesn't my body just cease to function? Because something there is probably in the wrong half of disrepair. But somehow I made it through. And when I got down to the base coat, the third stroke put me in the hospital, and I didn't see my home for 3 months. I was in the main hospital for 5 weeks. I was in a rehabilitation nursing center for about a month and a half, and then I was in a 2-week acute rehab for 2 more weeks, and I finally said, enough's enough, I'm going home. And that's the best healing opportunity for me, is to be away from you people and get back into my home. So I really didn't care whether I had the facility there to help me or not. My mental attitude was not the best in the facility. And there were things like people wouldn't talk to me, but they would try to apply rehabilitation techniques or meds or something to me. And I would have to say, well, why didn't you tell me you were going to give me this, And so the communication level was such that I just really did not feel comfortable. And so finally I said, I'm out of here. Most of this stuff I can do at home, and I will do my own research, and I will find out what I can do for myself that will benefit me most. And so finally took leave of the hospital and came home. And it's been a challenge. It's certainly been a challenge, but I think mainly it was like coming from the perspective that I must figure out what I can do and not dwell on what I cannot do.
You are addressing so many issues here. I mean, this is very interesting, and this is what our normal Western medicine at the moment does. You know, they apply drugs or treatments, but where's the person? Where's the person? It doesn't exist. You are a number XY theta, and they do the treatment to you. And we know that it is important that healing is not a thing only of physical how do you say, treatment. And the other thing is this, you said you had one and it gave you an sort of an alarm, and then the next one and it was even harder. I was wondering what were your thoughts about that? Did you see that as an alarm, or did you just think, oh, I can do it, my body is good enough, and just wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be an absolute idiot if you are not alarmed by having 3 strokes. Most people would say, well, was it one enough, Roland? And certainly, if I think about it logically, 1 is enough. But I have a condition that keeps my blood thicker than most people. And on top of that, I had some constricting arteries just above the base of my brain that kept the blood flow from entering freely. So in order to push this thicker blood flow through these constricting arteries, it was increasing my blood pressure. I was, out the roof with my blood pressure. I was wondering if I could even live with a blood pressure as high as 170 over 130 or 140. It was very, very high. So the interesting is, I've got like 5 or 6 medications prescribed to me now that I take religiously. And if I were to think about it, I would say, no, I don't need those. I can do it myself. I could use my brain and I could just fix myself and so forth. But I mean, that's a presumption, very presumptive thinking. So I went back to my meds, and I'm happy with them. And literally, I had last a year ago, I had what is called a TIA, which is actually considered a mini stroke. And so if you want to get right down to it, you could say that I've had many strokes. And the TIAs, if I've had more than one, I don't know. I'm not sure how many strokes I've had. So I'm the stroke master, I guess. But the last stroke I had, I went overnight into the hospital, and I came out, and the thing that they discovered was my blood pressure had evened out, and it's almost normal now, 125 over 85, practically normal. And I'm going, I don't know why. I don't know why this happened. And although I was a little bit weaker, all of a sudden I wasn't under a threat to burst a blood vessel or just faint and go out, stroke out, or anything like that. So it's interesting what happens, and what you can learn from these things is that the physical notion of what people want to impose upon you are not necessarily the best things for you. And to really focus on yourself and balance yourself is really the most important thing.
What did you do exactly? What did you do to get into balance?
Well, the first thing I did was I spent 3 months contemplating life, because there's not a lot to do in a hospital 24 hours a day. And you see 4 or 5 people daily for long periods of time and not at all, and spend a lot of time by yourself. So with my wife's help, and she was with me every single day, with my wife bringing me my laptop, I was able to plug my brain into something. And I was able to, although I couldn't do any work, I was able to start learning how to type left-handed and do some research, entertain myself, and at least put a smile on my face so that I wasn't just completely depressed. I'm not a very depressive thinker anyway, but it was good to have the laptop. And so I just got back into research and study, and eventually, when I finally got out of the hospital, I went home. I was so anxious to do something, and I thought about it, and my experience in the hospitals was such that I thought, I have to write a book because I had so many things happen that to record some of it was very, very essential. So I started writing, and that is typing left-handed. It got pretty good typing left-handed, and I am not left-handed. And so, although I couldn't sign my name on anything, I got pretty good at typing left-handed. So I got out in June of 2012, and in August I started writing a book, and 1 month later I had written my book. So 240 pages typed left-handed. That's a pretty good accomplishment. And so, but the thing was, it helped me relate to all the experience that I had, and I realized that it was not a blank slate period. There was a whole lot going on during those 3 months, and a life lesson by itself. I got to watch other people suffering. I got to watch other people dealing with rehab. I got to watch people caring for others and helping others and taking care of them, watching them go through therapy and improving themselves and getting better, and some people not. So it was an interesting life lesson to go through.
So you used this experience and the book afterwards as an elaboration really for changing your life?
Sure. I mean, it was a stepping stone because after I got through with the book, all I wanted to do was get back into my work and get a foothold. And of course, when you're recovering from a series of strokes, it kind of disconnects you with your business world. And of course, now I couldn't network. Well, not as easily. I would have to go to a networking meeting and have my wife push me around or wheel myself around something. And plus, all the people that I was working with previously are looking at me like, oh my gosh, Roland, you're in a wheelchair. And they're the ones that couldn't handle it, not me. But it affected other people. I mean, all of a sudden, their brain thinking would kind of freeze, So, but I wasn't free to do business even that way. So, the aspect of working online kind of levels the playing field in more ways than one, and I was very comfortable in engaging with this. What's up, Bill?
There is a comment from Bill Graham, which a little bit speaks to that, what you said just now. He says, when people are afflicted, our preconceived ideas automatically kick in and tell us that the person can't think or decide for themselves. Roland dispels this notion.
Thank you, Bill. I would hate to be thought of as a half-wit in the midst of my internet marketing. But yeah, I was concerned with that for a long time, wondering if, hi Richard Clarkson, Missy J, and anyway, I was concerned with whether or not I could maintain my faculties. And after a while, I just had to say, for better or for worse, I might as well find out what I know and find out what I can do. What I did find out was that my speech was impaired, and although most of the people will look at me and say, oh, we can't tell you're talking funny, if you were knowledge of me before the strokes and compared me to after the strokes, you could probably tell. But all in all, it's not that big a deal.
Did it slow you down? Or because I can understand you perfectly, you are not too quick. So as a non-speaker, English speaker, I can understand. So,
see, I've had like 30 plus years as a master of ceremonies disc jockey. So I did, I was behind the microphone for weddings and special events and things like that. And people would hire me to run programs. So I'd stand there in a tuxedo in front of 1,000 people sometimes, and just talking. I wouldn't even be playing music. Here I am a DJ, and I wouldn't even be playing music sometimes, just running a program, fashion shows and stuff like that. And so I could speak easily and freely and fast if I wanted to. I cannot speak fast anymore.
Good for us who are listening. Everything has its good, no?
I have a question for you, Roland, and that is, what was your greatest insight when you came home from the hospital? The third time? What was in your mind? What was the gift that you took with you from that experience?
That's a really great question. I think the biggest thing that I took away from that was that you know, the physical effects can affect and trap your body, but they cannot keep your mind still if you don't let it. And you know, I come from the school of thought that as long as you've got your mind, you can piece things back together or build something that is irrelevant to whatever handicap you have. And people have, you know, what normally we would consider, most of us and most of the people in the conversation here, most of us would consider some of the disabilities that people have as literally an atrocity, that we're so afraid of having a similar affliction or something like that, and they overcome what it is that they've got. So I know a web guy that helps people fix their computer problems, and he has no arms. Now, you know, I wondered about that. I did some research, and I found out the guy indeed deals with Windows and various software issues and viruses, and he does all that. Now, I don't know how he does it. I know it's got to be like through voice recognition and stuff, but he was an inspiration to me, and I can't possibly be crying about myself when people are conquering those kind of challenges.
Roland, I saw a person playing the guitar with the feet, and it was so good. It was amazing. It is the first time I saw that, but it is possible. When we don't allow our mind to go into victim consciousness and, oh God, poor me, and what has happened to me, that takes away the power and the initiative to learn something new. Because what I understand, you have learned many new things about you, which otherwise you would never have learned.
No, absolutely. Well, for one thing, before about 5 or 6 years ago, I had worked for someone else in the field of web design, but I was limited as to what I could do and what he was teaching me. So in order to break away from that, I had to actually completely stop and say, you know what, I can't work with you anymore. I have to be on my own so I can do what I wanted to do and not be under this umbrella of his guidance, so-called guidance. So in the midst of that, when I broke away, all of a sudden I could teach myself WordPress and I could teach myself SEO, and I realized that my 30 years of video experience from recording and taping and editing on 3/4-inch tape, all that experience could be translated into what I'm doing now. And it was just like basically adapting what I'd learned and some of the principles to bring me up to date and be current with what is today and what's going to be tomorrow. So, you know, when we break loose of the mold, we sometimes find that the mold was also shackling us and keeping us from thinking outside the box. So now I think there is no more box. I'm not thinking outside the box. I just got rid of the box.
That is so inspiring, Roland, to hear that, because there's a lot of people who they have to follow the rules and they have to stay safe, and they don't dare to go outside and explore that wonderful excitement that can come, and also danger, but to dare to face the fears, right? So what kind of fear did you solve when you came home from the hospital?
Probably the biggest issue for me was that I had no income. I had zeroed out because I'm not producing anything. Even the clients that I had were dormant or had moved on, and not that I could blame them at all. I couldn't respond to them. As a matter of fact, I still had a few DJ clients who had me on contract when I had one of my last strokes, and all of a sudden was like, well, I guess I won't be standing in front of your family in a few months and announcing the first dance of the bride and groom, etc., etc. And so it's like, my career as a DJ, which was doomed to end anyway, came to an abrupt halt. So everything just changed. It was like, no more, no more, no more. Not only that, you can't play your guitar, you can't play racquetball, you can't drive your car, you can't. And so I looked at that and I thought, there are so many can'ts staring me in the face. I gotta quit that completely and use what I've been trained to do all my life. And that is, don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can do. And when I did that, I realized that there's a lot I can do. And it's not as widespread, field, and it's not as musical, and it's not as fun playing racquetball, it's not as good exercise, but nevertheless, I can exercise my brain, I can learn something valuable from my business, I can relate to people, and I can meet people. I found out that I could actually meet people online, and that's what the world is transferring to right now, going from traditional networking and meeting people to doing these things like Hangouts and I'm meeting way more people now than I ever did, and I have a global friendship building and not just Southern California. Which
yeah,
kind of
is wonderful. Many of our friends, your friends, are here listening to you and your story. This is wonderful. Thank you for everybody being here. What I wanted to ask you, Roland, is one question.
Sure.
Did you make the experience then, when you are in a wheelchair and people meet you, how do they relate to you? Is there a difference between before and afterwards?
Well, I would have to say that there are two things happening: people who knew me before, and people who never knew me at all. So the people who knew me before, and God bless them, not a lot of them are coming by to see me in a wheelchair. A lot of people contacted me, but I purposely kind of held back from the party mode and inviting them over and stuff, because I don't want people feeling bad about me or feeling sorry for me. I just don't want any of that. And
is it your experience that they feel sorry for you and that they are sort of blue when they see you?
Oh yeah. When people suffer through something like this, an automatic cloud drops over the relationship, and some of them that got over that can see me and they go, "Wow, he's not playing racquetball, he's not playing his guitar, he's not doing this, but that's the same Roland that I know," and that they are the ones that take the time to re-engage with me are amazed at that. But the people who are new, it's a different thing. It's like I'll talk to them on the phone or online, we communicate, and then they come over and it's like, oh, he's in a wheelchair. And then right away it's kind of like a startling thing. It's like a wake-up call where their eyes will open up a little bit wider than they did, but then they realize it's the same guy I've been talking to, the same guy that I think I want to build my website. Okay, well, let's go with this and find out more. And then by the end of the conversation, they're going, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Yes, he's in a wheelchair, but I understood him perfectly. He makes sense. I'm learning something from him, and I still want him to make my website or whatever. So the people, everyone else are the ones with the issue of my being in a wheelchair, not me.
Isn't it amazing, no? That we don't learn to have a relationship to let's say, challenges of other people? I think that psychologically it's the fear behind it could happen to ourselves, and so we are sort of that. That's my idea. I don't know.
Sure.
What do you think, Margherita?
There's always the fear of something happening to ourselves, and nobody wants this to happen, you know. So whether it's this or a car accident, or there are people with disabilities that are a result of being in terrible accidents, and they're hemiplegic or quadriplegic from an accident like that, and they're in this similar state. And it wasn't a stroke, but there are a lot of ways to end up in a wheelchair. There are a lot of ways to end up disabled. And the last thing we want to do is feel sorry for ourselves and not be able to say, look, what I can do, what am I going to do now? And look forward, not behind. Because when you're looking back, you can't progress to the future. That's what the psychologists and psychiatrists would all call baggage. And the baggage slows our thinking down and keeps us out of the flow.
I'm going to ask you something about now when you have this new tool set. You have learned so much and shared with us today. That's like a hero's journey here, right? And you didn't get into the victim mentality. Maybe thoughts have gone about victim for a moment, perhaps. But what new things can you do now that you didn't do before?
There are a lot of things, okay? But you probably name the one thing that is my focal point that is not concerning anything of my skill sets that I learned. And that is when you said victim, the idea of victim. One of my passions is to speak to people about their mental and spiritual positioning. And the victim mentality is a result of not understanding your place in the universe, not understanding how it works, not understanding the energy flow, and feeling like, oh gee, some demon, dark and opposite of God or Jesus or whoever you hail as your heroes, some other entity is out to get me. And so you feel like a victim. And you feel like, oh, these things can happen to me and I have no control over my life. And I don't believe that for a second. I believe that we are self-determined, totally determined human beings, and that when we consider things like thoughts become things, and all that we are arises from our thoughts via Buddha, and Earl Nightingale says, we become what we think about. If we really think about what they're saying, it's like we have the control to govern our own lives, and it gives us full responsibility. Taking our responsibility for ourselves is where we are empowered, and when we don't take responsibility, that's when we become a victim. We'll be pointing the finger at everybody else. But you got to remember, when you're pointing a finger at somebody else or something else, you got three pointing back at you. So you got to think about, when you start going on the blame road, you're on the wrong track. Right off the bat, you're on the wrong track. Wherever you are, you put yourself there. And a lot of people will disagree with me, and a lot of people do have the victim mentality and won't say, for me, I'm in this wheelchair because of me, not because of surroundings, not because of my parents giving me the tendency to eat food that's bad for me or too much rice. It's nobody's fault but mine.
Oh, I wouldn't like to talk about fault in this case, because it's sort of blaming yourself. I don't think it's either a good thing to do.
No.
Yeah. Because for me, these things come out of lacking consciousness.
Exactly. But the opposite is also true. If the negative things come from a lack of consciousness, then if we strive for an expanded consciousness, we are thus empowered and find ourselves rising in consciousness and more in tune with the universe at the same time, which opens up many, many doors. And when you're living in lack and fear and doubt, those doors are utterly closed. So it's a way of life.
And who is more adapt, or how do you say, the right person to say that than you. Because people who are going well and they say these messages, you can always say, okay, they have had luck in their life, and so I don't believe them. But people should really take you as an example, you know, and that even this is useless to have all these fears while we are living, you know. When you are living in fear, you don't live. You miss the life. And then, you know what happens? Normally what you fear most will come. I had feared most, for instance, to get cancer, because my mother all her life was fearing to get cancer. My father died from cancer. My mother died from old age. Excuse me. But, you know, I had cancer. And this was for me also the turning point. And I said, and where I could learn how to handle with that. So we need
I agree totally.
Yeah.
You pretty much nailed it. Back to Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale says, we become what we think about. So if you're living in fear of something, be it cancer or a car wreck or whatever, you're actually manifesting and aligning your body with that negativity, which increases the odds of you having the problem. Now, people will say, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Well, if it doesn't, it doesn't. But to me, it does. I know for a fact that negativity and doubt and fear and anger and those things anchor you to all the negative possibilities that could happen in your life. And we manifest those things ourselves. And that's why we can take it full responsibility for what we're doing. We did it ourselves. We may not think so, but we did.
You know, and then there might be the people who say, yeah, maybe it makes sense to me, but I don't just know how to do that.
Yeah, and that is a recourse that's a long journey. That's people understanding more about life and developing a polarity to be positive. Because there are a lot of people that are happy and nice people, but they're polarized negative and live in fear and doubt and anger. Whereas when they finally turn and polarize positive, they go, well, I have to do something. I have to think better. I have to make better choices. Somehow I have to be happy. And that's the polar opposite of that which is destructive and keeps them out of the flow. So, I mean, the don't worry, be happy thing actually works.
Yeah, you know, I think sometimes people are not able to do that. And I for instance, did a training for coaching. And when I did this and had all the experience by myself, this was the moment when I really could change that, transform that. Because, you know, we Germans are a little bit worried about everything and a little bit all the time. So it's also a cultural bias, while Americans are much more like, oh, wonderful. It's generalized, but it is a little bit like this. So I came with this baggage and with all this depression stuff of my mother and so on. And when I finally could work with these voices and change and calm them, let's say, I wouldn't say change them, but calm these voices of fear and of negativity, of holding back and of everything which, all voice in yourself which is hindering you in some way, when I could access them and could take care for them, then I could make the shift, but not before. So I think sometimes it needs somebody to guide you, and I definitely had people who were guiding me. So just to say, you can do the journey. You don't need to wait for 3 strokes and to be 4 months or 5 months out of home. You can decide it. It is a long journey, but you can take one step after the other. And another one, you don't have to have it all done in 2 weeks or something. It takes life.
I agree. And probably the one thing that we should do is watch our polarity. When I speak of that, I mean simply always choose the positive, always lean towards the good, always lean towards the happiness, and that polarity will steer you in the right direction. As a general rule, and all other rules set aside, be positive. Be loving and positive.
This is wonderful. And I would add, begin to become aware of your inner self-talk, what it is saying. Because you might think you are positive, but if you don't really listen to what you are thinking, you probably think a whole different thing all the time.
We are our own worst enemies. We punish ourselves the best, we hurt ourselves the most, and can condemn ourselves the worst.
Yeah, and we can have ideas of ourselves which are not real, which is not the truth. So to become truthful about ourselves and see what we are doing, what we are thinking and feeling, as if we are looking to another person. Sometimes it would be really good to discover, because we are very good in seeing in other people what they are doing, let's say, wrong, you know, but in ourselves, we normally don't see it. And I think this would be the first step to a healing, let's say, you know, for people to become aware of how we really are in the world. And then we have the choice. And this is very nice, Roland, what you said. We have choice. We have the power to choose who we want to be in the face of certain events. You know, you couldn't probably avoid your stroke or an accident or something. We don't have the choice to avoid that, maybe a little bit, but not really, no? If something falls from the heaven on your head, you don't have the choice to not make it happen. But you have the choice how to react to this event, to the outside events. How do you be? Who are you in the face of certain events? And this is your choice. And you did it beautifully, really. You chose.
I will stick my neck out and offer the criticism from the masses, because I believe that your vibration actually determines whether you are under that plane that falls from the sky.
Okay, you can. I wouldn't go so fundamentalistic that everything is happening because of you. I think, you know,
it's 100%. Whether we think so or not, it's 100%, Heidi. We are the ones that cause our issues.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I don't want to have it so. That would mean that we are completely God, you know, if we can determine everything.
Let's mention that just briefly. God is a perfect being.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, for those people who relate to the universe as God, okay, God is a perfect being. God is everywhere. God is in all of us. God creates perfectly. So God created perfectly when He made us. So we are perfect creations of God, and we are extensions of the consciousness of God, which is in everything. So in that respect, we are little fingertips of God expressing themselves as you and me and everyone else. We are extensions of God. In that respect, we are God, but we don't have to have the arrogance to say, I am God, you know, because that's not the point. But God, through His consciousness, has given us the power to actually control our lives, not through a forced thing, through a consciousness issue that allows us to be in tune with our choice of events and our choice of vibrations. And that's where He gives it to us.
Yeah, generally I think you are right, but I mentioned to you before the interview we had with John Freeman, and he is exploring the science of possibility, and he says we have only 20% of our possibilities yet developed. So when we are a little bit, so I don't want to make people think that they are guilty when a car accident is happening, because if we were the perfect being, you know, then when we have 100% of all our possibilities, then I totally agree that we would be in how do you say, in guidance, the cause everything. But the consciousness is missing still.
The thing is, Heidi, as human beings, were we meant actually to have 100% capacity? No, I don't think so. I think that we were meant to use the smaller portion of our brains, not to punish us, but to be creative in a different way. And this allows for the dimension and dynamics of creating as human beings on a completely different level than if we were creating as gods. So I don't think it was even meant for us to have the 100%. And we were meant to be on the lower percentage of awareness level so we could create uniquely as we do as human beings.
Okay,
So
and
there's still no guilt.
Yeah,
Still no guilt.
I would say we are on the evolutionary path to always higher levels of consciousness.
Absolutely.
And who knows where we arrive.
I agree totally.
Okay, wonderful. We lost Margherita. I don't know what has happened to her. So
Connection problem, yeah.
we have still some moment, I guess. Yeah, we are at the end actually. So I thank everybody who has watched this show, and I thank you so much. It is so exciting to talk with you. I think we should talk another time and make another appointment to continue our discussion. It was really igniting.
This is beyond internet marketing and all that stuff. This is my wheelhouse. I love this.
Wonderful. So we come back. We come back and continue the show at another time.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Margherita.
Very nice to talk with you in this way and publicly, and have the other people who we know and appreciate very much to join us in this different way of talking together. So thank you very much. Do you want to have a last message to our friends?
I don't know that I could sum up life in a brief statement, but I think that I would fall back on the idea that we must keep an open mind. There's no way we can understand exactly what God or the universe or anything has in store for us or means for us to think while we're thinking with this limited perspective. So keep in mind that there's way more to the universe than meets the eye, and work with that and expand out, as Heidi says, in your consciousness, so that we can absorb more and more of it and expand out to what we really are. And you know, we are something more than human. So I don't believe that statement of we're only human. We are
superhuman. And this gives me the occasion to tell you that my mentor, big mentor Ken Wilber, is offering a free webinar or call next week about the superhuman potential. And I can post the link for it. You can register for it. I will do it in the event page. It's exactly, we are more than human.
Yeah, so could I post this one thing that I would like
sure,
people to see? And Nicole mentions that love this little bit that I can catch now. I agree that we are the responsible for what happens to us. We are extensions of a God, Roland Takaoka, and that's not something that I would have hoped to be able to convey today. That's but I'm glad it connected with someone out there who actually kind of gets what I'm getting at, because it's a very, very elusive concept, but I feel strongly with that one. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I absolutely agree. And this should be our last words, and see you next time. Bye-bye.